What is going on, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, where today we are on our 28th in-depth character review, and we look at Grand Moff Tarkin. Now, if you guys notice, over the past week I have been releasing a lot of Empire-related videos, and I'm not sure what the segment will be for the next upcoming in-depth review. Since Darth Nihilus is around the corner, things might get shaken up a bit, but in the meantime, a lot of you guys wanted to see Grand Moff Tarkin, so let's go ahead and take a look at him. Before we start talking about Grand Moff Tarkin, let's look at the Hall of Fame and see where we stand so far. In our last review, we looked at Kylo Ren's rework, and we promoted him from Padawan to Grand Master. He got a huge improvement, so check it out if you want to see what's new. But where is Grand Moff Tarkin going to fall? A lot of you guys might be farming and gearing him up for his ship, and you just might want to know how he is in other aspects of the game, and today we will answer all of those questions. But first off, we have to go ahead and look at his history. Once the Republic transformed itself into the Galactic Empire, Tarkin was appointed by Palpatine to be the Empire's very first Grand Moff. The title of Grand Moff was a political one, where his job was mainly to govern over sectors, or essentially, he governed the lower Moffs who were in charge of governing individual planets. So he was the big guy that overlooked all that stuff. More importantly, though, as we saw in Rogue One and the original trilogy, Grand Moff Tarkin was given control of the Death Star to put planets in fear so that they would stay loyal to the Empire. Tarkin's overconfidence in the Death Star ultimately led him to his death when he underestimated the rebels' attack, and he believed his Death Star was invincible. Well, at least until it blew up under his own feet. But in Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, we continue to see Grand Moff Tarkin deploy fear as a tactic to control his enemies while ensuring that those who are under his control are obeying every single command. So let's start talking about Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes a little bit more, and how do you unlock this character? Well, Grand Moff Tarkin used to be a Chromium exclusive character way back when, and he can still be found in the Chromium packs, but the most popular and the method that I recommend you farm him is through Squad Arena shipments. For 400 Squad Arena tokens, you can get 5 shards of Grand Moff Tarkin. Also, once you finally unlock the ships event, you will get 80 shards of Grand Moff Tarkin for free. So that's something to keep in mind. But in case you're wondering what is the estimated time to get all the way to 7 stars, it's going to take you roughly 22 to 66 days. And this is how I got the math. Let's say you place somewhere in the 2,501 to 5,000 range, you should be able to buy at least 5 shards of Grand Moff Tarkin every single day. If you place higher, you can get 10 to 15 shards a day. And that calculation I gave earlier does not even consider the fact that you will get 80 shards of Grand Moff Tarkin eventually as you progress further in the game. Moving our story along, I'm going to try something new today, and I definitely would love your feedback on this. Instead of dedicating a portion where I read off the pros, averages, and cons, I'm just going to show the graphs because a lot of you guys kind of get the point without me talking. So we're going to go ahead and merge the stats and the kit at the same time. So let me know if you like this format, because I want to try to make the videos a tiny bit shorter for you guys. So let's look at the kit now, and the first thing we have to talk about is Grand Moff's attack. Now, first off, this is probably the most unoriginal name for an attack, and if you guys think otherwise, let me know in the comments on whose attack sounds even lamer. But what this attack does is it deals physical damage to a single enemy, and this attack deals 10% more damage for each living ally. And this will do roughly 4,172 to 4,610 damage. And if we consider the fact that all allies are alive, this can do about 6,454, which is still kind of very low in the big picture, and it's just a very bland basic attack that has not changed really since day 1 of the game. Next up, we have Ultimate Firepower, and this deals special damage to all enemies with a 45% chance to remove 70% turn meter. And the damage output is quite weak on this. It's 2,311 to 2,553, but the turn meter removal is absolutely huge and works great under a Vader Zeta lead especially. However, the 45% chance makes this ability a little too inconsistent for my liking. the next ability we have is Intimidation Tactics. And in my opinion, this is his best ability because he can inflict offense down on all enemies for 3 turns and speed down for 3 turns if someone is a rebel. In addition, Tarkin has a 55% chance to gain 50% turn meter. So in a way, this is sort of the opposite of Poggle the Lesser, where instead of granting buffs, he is applying a variety of debuffs for quite a long time actually. Assuming potency is high enough, this is great, and he should be applying these debuffs very consistently since there is no percent chance, but obviously things can get resisted in this game. Lastly, the very disappointing ability is Tighten the Grip. Empire allies gain 28 speed, and that's it. It's so much different compared to these long paragraph abilities that we get nowadays from Vader, Darth Sidious, Darth Maul. Very basic, and essentially it hasn't changed since day one. Near useless nowadays as well with Palpatine, Krennic, Darth Vader, Zeta. Probably the second from the last best Empire leader. So this definitely needs a lot of improvement. Getting on from there, let's look at the gear requirements, and hallelujah, he is actually a very easy character to gear up compared to most others, especially when we look at raid gear. We see that the average amount of raid gear needed is 3, and Grand Moff Tarkin needs 2 pieces of raid gear to get to gear 11. The Mark V droid collar will be needed at gear 8, and then you have a little break until gear 10 when he needs the Mark 7 Nubian scanner. Now gold pieces, this is so great. He needs 0 pieces of gold gear, and he's 1 out of 13 characters that is like this. Purple gear, he's actually below average. The average amount of purple gear needed is 1,116 pieces, and Grand Moff Tarkin is at 1,070, putting him at number 57 for purple gear requirements. Now, for most popular pieces, he actually needs quite a diverse requirement, and he's relatively easy to gear. Doesn't need a bunch of stun cuffs, doesn't need a bunch of Carbonti sensor arrays, doesn't need a bunch of hypo syringes, so very easy to gear up for the most part. And then blue, green, and white gear, we see he's above average for blue as well as white, and then he's right on average for green gear. So now we can actually go right ahead and get to the subjective part of the review, where I give you random tips, my recommendations, Grand Moff Tarkin's best friends, his mortal enemies, as well as Yoda's do or do not checklist. And we first start off with my thoughts. Now, as you guys probably saw when I showed the stats, he has very little pros. Only has 1 pro and 1 average, and the rest is in the con. So very bad statistically speaking, and his kit is just very weak. Grand Moff Tarkin is one of those first generation characters that has not evolved at all. Even when he first came out, he wasn't really ever the top dog in the game. The biggest things about Tarkin is his ability to apply a lot of debuffs and to remove turn meter, which is great under a Palpatine lead and even a Darth Vader lead. If it wasn't for Palpatine or Grand Moff Tarkin's important role in ships, we'd probably never even see Grand Moff Tarkin be around at all. You're most likely never going to use his leader ability, especially when there's Palpatine, Darth Vader, and all that, unless you're super dedicated to the Empire and you don't have Darth Vader, Palpatine, or Krennic. The other thing is, besides relying heavily on a good Empire leader, his damage is strongly tied to his allies being alive. When his allies fall, he gets weaker and weaker and weaker, quite the opposite of Anakin Skywalker. And then last point I want to make is that he is not a good character to put in just any lineup. I'm showing some gameplay sometime in this video where it's just Grand Moff Tarkin in a random squad, and he's kind of like that awkward third wheel character. But I can say, at least if you're starting off in the game and you somehow get Grand Moff Tarkin as a lucky pull, he does provide a lot of use for your first few levels, especially with all the speed down and offense down. But once you start getting into your 40s and 50s, you're quickly going to get rid of Grand Moff Tarkin for someone a lot better. And if you are going to use Grand Moff Tarkin, well, you need to know who his mortal enemies are. His main mortal enemies are those who can cleanse and give tenacity up to their own squad, because Grand Moff Tarkin's biggest pro is that he inflicts a lot of debuffs, and if you can't inflict them, he's not going to be doing too much. So characters like Akbar, which is quite fitting actually, Captain Rex, Chirrut Imwe, Kenobi, and other cleansers are a huge mortal enemy for Grand Moff Tarkin. Biggs Darklighter is quite a mortal enemy because anytime he gets hit by an Empire character, he gains 100% turn meter and then comes back doing some pretty devastating damage. Other ones can be characters that can apply ability block, because Grand Moff Tarkin's most useful tools are his special abilities, and if he's not using them, he is absolutely useless. Characters that can stun and apply speed down are also pretty devastating, and most importantly, big damage dealers, because as you probably saw, he has very low health and very low protection, so he can quickly get destroyed by someone like Biggs and Wedge being together. What about his best friends? As we know, Grandma Tarkin makes the best cookies in the galaxy, and it's no good if you don't share it with anyone. And the one he really loves to hang out with is Emperor Palpatine as the leader, because when Emperor Palpatine's leading, then he gives Grand Moff Tarkin a lot of turn meter when he is applying debuffs. Other characters like Darth Vader lead are also great. Krennic lead is also another great one because he can give potency to Grand Moff Tarkin. If you are going to use him with Palpatine, do keep in mind that the AI will not use intimidation tactics first, so although it works to your advantage when you're using him under Emperor Palpatine, the AI does not think so, unfortunately. Other characters are characters that can remove turn meter. Tanks are also great friends because you want someone to cover for him since he is so fragile. Other than that though, he does not synergize too well with the rest of the Empire faction, so his friendship is quite minimal because the only thing he has is the leader ability in him. Let's talk about mods for a few moments, and when picking what set to give him, you really just want to focus on something that will bring up his basic attack to be much stronger, as well as ensuring that you always can apply those variety of debuffs. With that strategy in mind, what you might want to consider is getting either offense mods, critical damage mods, or critical chance mods to go ahead and up his basic attack so it's even stronger, or what I would probably recommend is getting potency mods to make sure you can constantly apply those debuffs without any problem. You could also use health mods, but the problem is he has very low health to begin with, so when you multiply a low number with a percentage, you're not going to get as much compared to someone like Shore Trooper or General Kenobi. And then when you start to pick your primary and secondary mods, I just really recommend getting a lot of speed. He has very low speed in the game. He is super slow, so you want to bump that up as much as possible. And then of course, protection mods, potency mods are highly advised. And then critical damage mods for your triangle would be great, as well as many other things you can go with like offense. And it is time to talk about Yoda's do or do not checklist, and I'm quickly going to go through many of the events in the game and let you know if this character will be viable, and I want to start off with Arena. Now yes, I said you can make use of him as a beginner player, but when thinking about this list, I think of the end game, and in Arena, Grand Moff Tarkin should not be in there. Yes, he synergizes well with Palpatine, but at the same time, so many other better characters like TIE Fighter Pilot should be in Grand Moff Tarkin's slot. Galactic War, I will go ahead and say do, because especially through those first 6 battles, applying speed down, applying offense down will help your squad in the long run, so let's go ahead and say do. Dark side battles, especially dark side battles, because you face a lot of rebels and the offense down and speed down really does help out, so let's go ahead and say do. Cantina battles, I'll also be lenient and say do. He can be helpful. A lot of rebels that you fight up against. Mod challenges, I made an Empire farming guide video, and yes, Grand Moff Tarkin makes potency mod challenges super easy to complete, especially, like I've said a million times, the speed down on all the rebels really does help out. Now ships, 100% do. He is my favorite fleet commander. I always wipe out the enemy with his massive attack. It really does help out a lot. So for ships alone, he is absolutely amazing. Regarding the Rancor raid, I will say do if you have Darth Vader's Zeta leader, because if you do, you can remove a lot of turn meter, and I don't want to spoil everything, but I'm making a video on this right now, and it is so much fun. But without Vader being your leader and having the Zeta, I'm going to have to say do not, despite the fact that he can go ahead and apply offense down and sometimes remove turn meter, but it's just not as consistent if he's not with Darth Vader's Zeta. Lastly, the AAT raid, I'll go ahead and be lenient and say do. It does come in handy, especially in Phase 3 when you just have to apply offense down to all the droids, but he's not the #1 choice, but a decent 3rd or 4th stringer, that's for sure. But he does get a lot better if you have Vader's Zeta in Phase 3. So now it's the moment of truth. Let's go ahead and pull up the Hall of Fame and see where Grand Moff Tarkin and his lovely cookies are going to fall. From Grandmaster to Youngling, I'm going to go ahead and place Grand Moff Tarkin in the Padawan status, but his cookies will be a Grandmaster, no doubt about that. So overall, guys, I hope you enjoyed this review. I don't know what the next character will be, but just in case, let me know down below what Empire character we should review next. Darth Nihilus is coming around the corner. The developers are trying to work with us so we can get some exclusive content for you guys. I'm hoping that happens, but just in case, let me know what Empire character we should look at next. If you guys are interested in supporting this channel, down below in the description, there is a link to go to a website where you can go ahead and purchase an official Arnold T101 shirt. Thank you so much for your contributions. It definitely helps out the channel and especially all of my law school expenses. And as always, guys, leave a like, comment down below, and subscribe for more Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes content. And we will talk again soon. Peace out.